Hello,
Hello.
and good afternoon. Ayan.
Yes.
So, kamusta kayong lahat? And welcome sa Wealth Arki live stream natin this week. And of course, meron tayong guest. Ayan, si Sir
Yes.
Edric. Yay, palakpakan natin.
Hello.
Hello, Edric. Kamusta?
Buti. Basta.
Wow.
Pang medyo choppy
Ayan.
si Sir.
Medyo choppy. But I think it will be okay later. So, for this afternoon, we will be talking about homeschooling, no? And of course, we think that this is very relevant today because ayun nga, a lot of my friends, no, they're all researching about homeschooling. So sabi ko sa kanila, manood sila sa live stream natin para malaman nila kung ano ba yung homeschooling na yan. Kasi I know a lot of parents don't really have an idea what exactly it is. Ang alam lang nila sila yung magtuturo sa anak nila. But I think it is not as simple as that, no? Yan. And
Dapat may ongoing trend na rin na mas nagiging popular na yung concept of homeschooling versus going to a private school or public school because may alternative learning na rin kasi. At pinapromote din yung multiple intelligence learning. So it will be very interesting what Sir Edric has to share about that then regarding homeschooling.
So, sa mga nanonood sa atin, so of course, ako nga pala si Fitz at saka si Renzi. We're the directors of Wealth Arki and kasama natin si Adriel na junior financial planner natin. And our special guest for this afternoon is si Edric Mendoza na kasing gwapo namin.
Yes.
Separated at birth.
Separated at birth.
Lamang
Malamang daw. So, batiin muna natin yung mga nandito. Si Bernardino Banzon. So, hello, hola. Nasa Spain ka ba? Ayan. So, good afternoon, good evening sa iyo. And si Alan Dizon.
Alan Dizon. Hello po. Yes.
And si DNA or Dina. Ayan. So,
hello din kay Agent Disaster. Humabol pa.
Okay. Yes. Hindi pa lumalabas sa ano ko. So anyway, sabi nga natin for this afternoon, we will be talking about homeschooling, no? And siguro just to start things off, we can ask Sir Edric. Ano ba exactly yung homeschooling? And of course, guys, sa mga nanonood sa atin ngayon, kung meron kayong questions, you can just ask it sa live chat. And then we will answer them later, right?
Saka nagtatagalog si Edric, ha? Baka inisip dapat
English. Sure. Baka mo-mostly tayo dyan. So, what is homeschooling? No? Tanong mo, Fitz?
Yes.
Sabi ni Jill kanina, the government is becoming more open to homeschooling dahil nga, the reality is, there's about 1.2 billion students across 190 countries in the world, and they're all learning from home. No choice.
Wow.
Sa Philippines, 27.2 million students from K through 12 to grade 12, no? And every learner has been forced to learn from home. So the big discussion with DepEd right now in defining homeschooling is gumawa sila ng patakaran, no? And yung patakaran nila, basically, they created a learning continuity plan. How will the Philippine students still carry on learning in this new normal? And in the learning continuity plan, nag-provide sila ng 5 delivery options. Kasama dyan ang homeschooling. At kailangan kong i-explain to para maging malinaw. Ano ba yung pagkakaiba ng homeschooling? No? What's the difference? The 5 different options would be, number 1 is traditional. So that's face-to-face, like the schools that many of us came from. But as we know, kakasabi lang ni President Duterte na papagbawal niya ang face-to-face learning because he's concerned about the impact of this pandemic. So that is the first option, but we're not so sure how feasible that will be given the recent announcement of the President. Pangalawa is what is called distance learning. So ito yung, many people will confuse homeschooling with distance learning. Ito yung nasa bahay yung bata, may online or may TV or may radyo, and they're learning from home, right? Distance learning. And then merong blended. Yung blended is a little bit of face-to-face and a little bit of distance. Some public schools will be doing that to be able to maximize itong new normal na hindi pwedeng maraming bata sa school, no? And then number 4 is what's called apprenticeship. So that's for the senior high school students. And instead of going to a facility, papapuntahan na lang nila sa diretso sa companies, sa businesses, so that they can disperse the senior high school students. Apprenticeship is the 4th. And then the 5th one is now homeschooling, right? And after I described all of that, the main difference of homeschooling from those other 4 would basically be that, as Fitz was mentioning earlier, the person driving the education is not the school and the teacher, it is the parent from home. Yan yung isa sa pinaka big differences when we talk about homeschooling, no? As a mode of learning. So, kung i-cluster natin lahat ng 4 compared sa homeschooling, para siyang the others are what we are calling, or what DepEd is calling, home-based learning, right? It's based at home, yeah, but still driven by the school and the teacher. And then homeschooling is now driven by the parent from home. Yan yung isa sa mga defining features ng homeschooling para maging malinaw sa mga viewers natin at para sa inyo. So I hope that makes it clear. Homeschooling is essentially parent-led, home-based education.
Okay.
All right. So, I remember you, Edric, as the host of ANC On the Money, but you have a company which is yung Homeschool Global. When did you start this company ba? And what inspired you to go into homeschooling from, I guess you were in the current news and current affairs department of ANC before.
Yeah, actually, so the story of ANC was I was being featured by Tina Palma in Talkback about homeschooling. This was in June 2012-ish. And when she interviewed me after that, the ANC team said, hey, we are creating a new show and we want someone to be able to engage people, who has an ability to draw out people like Fitz Villafuerte, Renzi Violena, and has a passion to be able to help. So I said, okay. And that's what got it started as far as ANC is concerned. So I've always had Homeschool Global as a business, right? We really want to consider it more of almost like a social entrepreneurship, if you will. We want to be able to help first. Right? And so it's been, my journey with it has been about 12 years. We've rebranded and, kind of spawned across. And so we have a viewer here, nga si Rainman, na nasa Dubai. We have hubs in the Middle East, one in Dubai, one in Abu Dhabi, one in Qatar, which we just opened, several around the Philippines. So what inspired me to get started and get going with this, Fitz, it really was, to be honest, a family story. Alam nyo, like those of you that are dads here, ako naman gusto ko yung best education para sa anak ko eh. And my wife was homeschooled. So nung nagkakilala kami sa college and we got married and started talking about family, of course, my instinct was to bring them to the same school I came from. And my wife's instinct was to maybe try homeschooling dahil she was homeschooled for a while sa elementary, and she really enjoyed the experience. So long story short, nag-compromise kami. Since preschool pa naman yung panganay namin, we said, let's have him do a little bit of Montessori, 2 days, and then the other days homeschool. Preschool pa naman eh. And you know what? To be very honest, I was very biased against homeschooling. Kasi iniisip ko sa simula, parang para sa mga hindi naman kaya mag-cope sa school yan eh. Di ba? Para sa mga artista lang yan or sa mga may sakit. That was my stereotype. O sa mga bibit na, sa pera, sa mga katipid. That was my stereotype, honestly. And yun nga. Long story short, when we did the experiment, I saw something different in my eldest son. I saw na parang, wow, he really is different. And because of how he turned out, and I had a good experience at school. I loved it. But because of how he was turning out, sabi ko, you know what? There's more to this than I thought. And we kept going. And so that became my journey in homeschooling, Fitz. And after that, my son was enrolled in a program of homeschooling. And that began my journey. I came on board. I helped try to change things there and build it, or rebuild it, if you will. And that's how we've come to this point. Our desire has been a similar story for parents who see the same benefits and the same wins. It has become a very viable option for thousands of students across 30 countries now. And this was before COVID. nung nag-kick in itong COVID, to be very honest with you, we're not the only ones who are helping families today, and across the different groups in the Philippines, we are all overwhelmed. Everybody's trying to find ways to build capacity. Kasi ang daming nagtatanong about homeschooling or switching to this form of learning in this new normal. So yeah, that's in a nutshell my story. And I carry on, kaya I got excited nung sinabi niyo, oh, Edric, you want to talk about homeschooling? Game. And my advocacy and my work in the personal finance space obviously still carries on, and it's a wonderful synergy, di ba? Marami sa mga kaibigan natin who are advocates in the financial planning space are also homeschooling. Di ba? Si Randall, si Chicky, yan, yung mga people who see that it's actually such a strong fit. It makes sense from a financial standpoint also. So, anyway, sorry, medyo nag-oversharing. Back to you, boys.
Okay.
Tama naman.
I was just curious. So you started off like 12 years before, but I think on a global level, how old or how young has homeschooling? I'm sure you're one of the pioneers in the Philippines, right? So in terms of the global market or in terms of history, how long has homeschooling been na pala?
Yeah, so Renzi, from a education standpoint, as a method, right? Homeschooling was actually the first method, right? If we look at the way that the world has evolved, in the agricultural age, mom and dad had a farm, they taught their kids, they farmed together, homeschool. And then the world evolved, industrial age. As the industrial age evolved, that's when people now had factories, assembly lines, and jobs. And because of the wars, both mom and dad sometimes would have to work. So because of that, schools were born. They built the school system to follow a lot of the industrial age systems, di ba? Yung panahon natin, nasa school tayo, yung mga school bell, saan ba nanggaling yan? Recess, lunch break, dismissal. Saan ba galing? All of those terms come from the industrial age terms used for factories. There's a recess for the worker, lunch break. So it worked very much for the industrial age because to fund the war economies, they wanted to make sure that the industrial movement would carry on. So all of the students of that age had to be educated in the same way, ready for the industrial age. And it worked. But as we know, we're not in the industrial age anymore. So to your question, Renz, as we moved into the information age, right, that has become a game changer for education. And I think in the 90s, so 80s, medyo, it was starting to kick in already. There was a revival. A large part of it was in the US because what happened was many of the American students in public schools, right, were worried about the values. So as they shifted out of public school and went to like religious schools, Christian schools, what happened is the government created higher taxes for these religious schools like Christian schools. So suddenly, ang daming kabataan ayaw mag-public school pero could not afford private school. So that's when we said, kami na lang. So that birthed it in the 80s, right? They started doing it on their own, and many different, publishers also who were providing it to private schools said we need to create materials that will support parents who don't know how to teach, and that shift created the rebirth in the 90s. So for the Philippines, we also had some influence in the 90s. There were some religious families who came, missionaries, Christian families who started doing it for those reasons. And then it really started to take off, I would say, around the year sort of maybe 2008, mga ganyan, 2006, 7, 8, when there was already product. When people started seeing, uy, itong mga batang to who were homeschooled from that 80s and 90s crop were doing okay, like my wife, right? That generation. So that sort of snowballed, and it's caught on now, right? So that's, in a nutshell, the history in the Philippines. So maybe 12 years ago when I first started, there were maybe 3,000-4,000 homeschoolers in the Philippines. Now there's close to 25,000, and that's before COVID, right? With COVID, you can imagine. To give you ideas, right? In 1 week alone, one group called the Facebook, Homeschoolers of the Philippines, in 1 week, they grew from 20,000 members to 30,000 members. So in 1 week. So that's what percent growth in 1 week is unheard of. Our program, we have intros that would be about 60 people each time. Now it's 600, and we've had upgrades. all of these different. So that's kind of in a nutshell what's happening. Obviously, this COVID thing has been a game changer for the whole country as far as homeschooling is concerned. And people are forced to do it.
Yeah.
So parang ano pala, no? It's just like going back, parang going
Back from
back to
roots. Back from
the roots, and then the original, the original education system that we've had.
Parang back to basics, no? Pati yung buhay natin, back to basics. What is important? People are not depending on many wants. Kasi hindi ko naman kailangan yan eh. Hindi na tayo bigis kayo, naka-t-shirt na kayo. Nainggit ako sa inyo, dapat t-shirt na ako ngayon.
Oo. Tama yan.
Yeah.
So
back to basics.
People are going back to basics, even in education.
Right.
Well, I guess one of the reasons why the traditional classroom type of education persisted is because, of course, yung mga parents, they are also busy with their work, and I think that's related to one of our viewers' questions. No, siguro we can answer si Agent Disaster. Ayan. Sabi niya, question, sir, I have 2 kids and I am working 8 to 5 during weekdays. Could homeschooling work in my situation? Even with my kids at grade school, I already struggle to teach them at home. Yeah. What can you say about that, Edric?
Yeah.
Sure. That is the number one question we have been getting in this COVID lockdown. Because I think the reality is, kasi nga, diba, everybody's forced to learn from home. So ang inisip ng parents ngayon is, option A, I will work with the schedule of the school and the rhythm of the school. They're still at home. Or option B, I'll do it myself. They're still at home. So my answer to Agent Disaster's question is, it can work. What is the difference? So let's create a scenario. So if you're in a school, by the way, I also am invested in some school systems. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with schools, right? I'm just showing how education has evolved. And so if you're in a school and you're enrolled, what will happen is your child is learning from home and the schedule is dictated by the school pretty much. They have to work with the teacher, they have to interact with teachers on those set schedules, right? The difference with homeschooling is you can control that. You can say, actually, magtatrabaho muna ako. So after you work, after you're done, let's say 5, 6 p.m., you're at home, then you can start helping your child. Second, the difference would be the curriculum pacing would be not as fixed for homeschooling. So what could happen is you have an online portal where your child will also log in. They might meet other homeschooled kids also, or just a teacher, where it could be an interactive module that's teaching them, right? You can now schedule those on your own. You can pace it. And you can say, halimbawa, alam mo, gusto ko magpahinga anak ko sa umaga. So after lunch, I'll get started with the modules. And when they're doing modules, pagtapos ko ng work, I'll talk to them. What is very important to consider for Agent Disaster at sa ibang mga viewers dito is we encourage parents who are working to make sure that they can find at least 1 to 2 hours every day. If it's your first time, because maybe the GCQ now allows you to leave the home and there will be no guardian for your child, no one to be there, si lolo, si lola, kahit kasabahay, walang magbabantay sa bata. I would not encourage you to do that. But unfortunately, even if you don't do that, if the school is requiring that, that's a challenge you will have to be able to address on your own, right? But having said that, it's important that if you are both working and you homeschool, there has to be a guardian for the child, even as they're doing the modules, for example, online, or they're with an online teacher. That's my suggestion. So 1 to 2 hours, and if you have to leave in the daytime, make sure that someone is guarding them. And then what happens is on Saturdays, siguro buong umaga, you now go through the work in more detail with the child. So that's how you make it work. Is it more challenging? Agent Disaster, yes, right? Obviously, it will be more challenging, pero dahil nga sa new normal ngayon, where everybody will have to kind of learn from home, what parents are telling us is they're saying, I think I prefer that at least I am more flexible with the material, with the pacing in a homeschooling scenario versus in the school. And what we're hearing some people saying also is, I'm also able to save on the fees. Kasi if I'm going to be teaching my kid or helping them in a school setting, pero din naman sila, will the fees justify it? That's kind of where parents are making the decision. Versus if I homeschool, it will be a lot less. I can control it. I need to be in charge. That's the biggest change and responsibility. But it might be worth it. So, Yon, I hope I answered your question, Agent Disaster.
I
So,
thought you
Yeah.
have to be with your kid with like
With,
whole
yeah.
day
Yeah.
Well,
homeschooling,
I
teaching
have
them.
a
Yun naman.
follow-up question.
Yeah.
You
Go.
said that you need to at least commit mga 1 to 2 hours
2
a
hours.
day.
Yeah.
Is it possible to not just do homeschooling during the weekdays and just do it the whole day ng Saturday or the whole day ng Sunday? Or is it really something that
Mm.
you need to do every day?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
when you
may
first
pacing ba or
Yeah, tama.
something.
So when you first start, because it's your first time, kailangan mas hands-on. That's the truth. So it's hard to do na kakasimula mo pa lang and then throughout every day you're not there at all. Tapos you'll go through it on the weekend. That will be a lot harder for you and also for the child. So you really want to be able to have at least 1 to 2 hours that you can block off. For those that are working from home, maybe there are workarounds. I'm hearing a lot of companies who also see that this is a reality, families giving concessions. For example, you know what? You take a good first 2 hour block, 8 to 10, and then you sign off, tend to your kid, and then you go back right to the workspace. So I'm sure that with this new normal, you can work something out, or you might be able to work something out with your employers if you are employed somewhere. If you are, like Fitz and Renzi here, who can control their time, and myself, and obviously there's a lot more flexibility for you and for us, even as we work from home, right? Pero yun, for those employed, I wouldn't suggest yung sinasabi ni Fitz na walang homeschool for the weekdays, tapos buhos on Saturday and Sunday. It will be very hard for the child and for you. Mas
But-
mapapagod kayo. It will affect the learning.
But for the child na
Yeah.
I guess nagsi-self-study siya, 'di ba? Yeah, the child is going through the modules. How long does that take each day, no? Ilang
Great
hours na nag-aaral yung anak
Yeah.
mo?
So for children that are early age, so until about 7 or 8 years old, they would probably spend only 1 to 2 hours of academics every day. And it alternates. Hindi yung lahat ng subjects araw-araw. No, you do it alternating. You can do something like math and science, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then you do the languages, English, reading, Filipino, and history, Tuesday, Thursday. 1 to 2 hours only for the young age up to about 7 or 8, and you really want to break it up. That is the total academic time, hindi yung isang bagsak 2 hours. You have to break it up, no? So you break it up for the young ages, 50 to 20-minute blocks at a time, and then they break so that they don't get strained. Lalo na if they're engaging online, it's not going to be very good for their development and their attention, no? If they're older ages, let's say you're now 9 to about 12 years old before high school, no? 9 to 12 or 13, you will spend now about 3 to 5 hours, right? And in those 3 to 5 hours, you will now spend more blocks. It's not just 15 to 20. They need to learn the disciplines from about 30 to 40 minutes at a time, right? And then when they hit the high school level, of course, yan, iba na, heavy lifting na yan. So high schoolers, they now do about maybe 5 to 6 hours at a time. And same thing, they use maybe 40-minute blocks at a time as they go about the learning at that level. No, but napaka-importante sabi mo, Fitz, what has to happen for families to homeschool, and even if you're not going to homeschool, if you will just do home-based learning, my suggestion is you make sure that the child learns to self-study, yung word ni Fitz. In the education space, we like to call that self-directed learners. If you're able to develop that in the child, then whether they're in a school or in a homeschool environment, it will be advantageous because they're motivated to learn. Hindi yung ikaw parati nagpo-push, aral ka na, mag-homework ka na, gawin mo na yung kailangan mo gawin.
Okay. I have a question in related
Sure.
to Sir Fitz, but I think Agent Disaster also mentioned it. So you mentioned parents would be trained before you teach. So how long would it take? And my question is, are there any digital tools for the parents regarding homeschooling, because it's becoming a bit more popular right now? And I also have a lot of friends who are also around my age, millennials, who are considering homeschooling when they get married in the future. So are there any tools digitally, or do you have to do it like hands-on training, or are there any formal training sessions regarding that? Because I know it's a bit challenging to homeschool a child or children when they're still starting out, as we already mentioned before.
Yeah. natatawa yan kasi si Renzi dahil sabi mo, millennial.
Kasi somebody said na, no, shout out daw.
Ito, bago mo sagutin yan, Edric, no? Ito, si Jeffrey, no? I always watch you po before on the money. Ang cute nyo po. Pa-shoutout naman po dyan.
Salamat, Jeffrey. Carry on. Suporta pa rin sa On the Money. Alright. So, ang tanong ni Adriel.
Agent disaster. How long would the training take?
So how long and then my tools?
Sure. So as far as training is concerned, in the Philippines, there are what are called homeschool providers, right? And these homeschool providers have trainings built in their services. So it depends on what services you need and you're willing to pay for. Yan ngayon yung training na makuha mo. For our program, Homeschool Global, right, there are various workshops and trainings that help parents start. We call them Homeschooling 101. And then we have the Homeschool 100 series, the Homeschool 200 series. And what we've done is basically we look at the number of units necessary for a person with an undergraduate degree to become a teacher. Kasi pwede naman yun, no? You can go to a college and take about 15 to 18 units of different subjects. And once you complete all those units, if you want to, you can now take the PRC licensure exam. And if you pass, obviously, then you become a licensed teacher. So what we've done is we took those units and together with some of our educators, we repackaged it to make it friendly for parents. And then we spread it out. So yun ngayon ang magiging training. So parang if you want to become a teacher to your child, you can literally become a teacher to your child. So that's how the training programs work, Adriel. Are there digital tools out there? Are there other trainings parents can look for online? I'm sure there's a lot. Most of them, and I'll put this out there already, will come from the US. Kasi nga, they're the people who kind of kick-started it in the 80s and 90s, and it's a lot more mature market. They have millions of students there. And if you're following the US news, as I'm talking to the homeschool leaders in the US, 30% of the American population are saying we are not going to school when it opens. So you can just imagine from the millions they already have now, so many more people are homeschooling. So you can check that out. Look for different blogs, look for different websites. You can aggregate a lot of different how-tos and tips to equip you better. But if you want something more structured and formal, I would suggest go to providers. And I've mentioned, how it's structured, for example, for Homeschool Global, no? So that's how we help equip parents. And the best thing to do, the reality is, as you go, just like anything, right? You want to just maybe find a community of people around you that you're comfortable with, right? Like so many other interest groups, marami dyan, Facebook groups, or even in your village. And so I would suggest that a parent who wants to homeschool, apart from these structured learnings or other trainings you might get online, be connected. So that as you're going to the journey, it becomes collaborative. And it not just for you, but also for children. Diba? Many people ask about socialization, interaction. Yan. So that's how it can now happen. If there's a group of people around you who are also doing it.
So, yung company mo, Edric, na Homeschool Global, basically, you're the ones who are training and helping parents on how to do homeschooling. And you're also the one who provides the modules, the curriculum, tama ba? Or is that something that you can get from DepEd or CHED? I'm not really sure about how homeschooling works. So, for example, I'm a parent and I want to enroll my child in a homeschool. So, I would have to approach a homeschool provider, and then the homeschool provider will be providing the training sa akin kung paano ko siya gagawin. And also, they will be the ones who will be providing my child the modules to learn. Tama ba?
Right. Like, parang it's an end. Are you like an end-to-end na ba? End-to-end na ba yung your company?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So let me just I'll answer it in two parts. No, what are the key ingredients of homeschooling, and then what does HEC offer? Right. So the key ingredients of homeschooling, I think you said it best already. You need a teacher, you need materials, and then you need the child. So the teacher is the parent. So since you've already asked how does they become a teacher, that would be through the trainings. Now, as far as the materials are concerned, because the Philippines is not a mature homeschooling market yet, there's two ways people can get materials. One is they use the textbooks that the schools will use. Medyo mas mahirap yun kasi you have to study it and you need to get answer keys and find out how is it structured, kind of think like a teacher. The other is you now look for materials that are designed for homeschooling parents. And 90% of all the materials used in the Philippines would be, again, from North America because they're the mature market. So they have these materials would have built-in guides on what quizzes to do, what projects to do, right? So that as a parent, you're a little bit more confident. So that's how to do it. You need to find materials that are suitable for you as a parent. You can get textbooks from the school, or you can get materials that are designed for homeschoolers that are primarily out of the US. And a number of these things can be online because of a time like this. There are many online materials that you can use that are suited for homeschooling families that obviously have top quality education or academics. So that's the first part of my answer. The second part, what does Homeschool Global offer? I think Renzi said it best. It's like end to end, right? So it's like if you know, I don't want to plug a brand here, but if you want to talk about we've got it all for you, right? That's kind of what we wanted to build is to provide an infrastructure so that ang labas, no, the vision that I've always kind of carried is we wanted to disrupt education. You know, disrupting it by saying, what if you could design your own school, right? So maraming disruptive spaces like, I want to build my own home. Ang daming mga depot, di ba? So I can pick and choose and discover how to build my own home. You want to build your own office, meron din dyan. Do it yourself, Office Depot, you can do it. We wanted to do the same in education. So we basically created a depot, if you will, where parents can pick and choose the components of the education. So they're building their own school. They're building their own education. So I want some materials na ganito. Okay, we have this. We can check and choose. I want some training. You pick and choose from the training you want that makes sense for you. Even in as far as the academic rigor and the accreditation, right? We are accredited across the US. We're accredited in the Philippines. We're accredited in the Middle East. So you pick and choose. We have families who want US because they plan to send their kids abroad. We have families who are just want to send their kids to the Philippines, so they choose Philippines. So yun, the key ingredients, the training to equip parents, and then community also. We offer that, right? There's a community of other homeschoolers so that your child can interact with other children and you can meet other parents. We call those learning groups. We have the materials. We have a portal. You might want to just look it up, learningplus.ph. And all of the material there has been curated for homeschoolers. So even if you are not enrolled in Homeschool Global, you can pick and choose like that online materials that I was talking about for families. Some parents, just to get a better feel of homeschooling, they just buy materials first to try it out. Parang kaya ko ba to? So that while they're deciding whether they can go into the school system, while their child is still enrolled somewhere, they have some of those materials. So that's how it works. You know, the key ingredients would be the parent who's the teacher and equipping her and making sure that she has a community around her. The second would now be the materials, right? And as I mentioned, there's not many in the Philippines that's designed for homeschoolers. What you will have would be textbooks or maybe some online portals that have been created, but for schools. Many of them would be US, so you'd have to look into that. For HG, as I mentioned, that's what we try to do. We try to cover it end to end and give parents as many options as possible.
So I'm curious. Sabi mo there are a lot of accredited homeschool providers. When you say accredited, they are accredited by the DepEd. Kasi I'm also curious kasi dati, of course, traditional classroom schooling ako na grade 1, grade 2 hanggang grade 6. And how do you know kung ano ng grade ng anak mo? And then, of course, when they finish yung senior high school and they go to college, di ba? Ano yung certificate? Does DepEd give the diploma? Do they give a test? And then when you pass that, then you're officially the next grade. Yan.
Yeah.
Sure. So in the homeschooling world in the Philippines, there's generally two types of homeschoolers, right? There are what are called independents. And then there are those who are enrolled in an accredited provider. Why is that important? When we say accredited by the DepEd, that basically means you are now going to follow the same kinder through grade 12 pacing and system that is in the schools. So at Homeschool Global, your question, there's kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, and everybody follows the same leveling and assessments, right? And even the things they need to learn will be at par. Well, we'd like to think would also be higher than school systems. So, but that's the general thinking. If you're independent, then you can do whatever you want. You don't have to follow grade levels. You don't have to study. I mean, really, some kids are like, there's part of the philosophy of some families would be what's called free range parenting. So like, they're like, I'll let my child do whatever they want. They wake up, they want to study the river that we see near our house. Let's study the river. And it works for some families, right? I'm not going to tone that down because this is the new world. So anyway, having said that, your question is, that's how the accreditation works, right? It basically assures the government that you're following the same leveling. And that's why accreditation matters in those situations. And it's following the same grade leveling that you would in a school, like your grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and the same with me. Of course, iba na ngayon because there's the senior high school component of 11 and 12.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Okay naman magtanong.
Yeah. What's the minimum age of a child can do homeschooling? I mean, from what quote-unquote level can they start homeschooling and until what level?
Sure. So same as schools, Ren. So you can start off at kindergarten, right? That's about 5 years old, 4 or 5. And then you end up in grade 12, senior high school. That's the current homeschool infrastructure that exists across different providers. No, some parents will actually choose to homeschool early on. So like in preschools, as early as 3.5 years old, they can already start homeschooling.
So how do I know if graduate na yung anak ko? Merong parang test? Ano yun? Kasi what if sobrang talino niya, 10 years old pa lang siya, marunong na algebra. So, ganyan.
Pag-uupkat ko na to.
May diploma ba or something or certificate?
Is there a test that your child will take na provided ng DepEd to certify na high school graduate level na yung anak ko?
Yeah.
So the accreditation matters. Where a school is accredited, where homeschool is accredited, the way that I can make it simple for you guys, it's like you're in a school. So they follow the same grade levels, have assessments, they have quizzes, they have report cards, and as they graduate each level, they're going to be given a diploma, just like a child in a private school. So I come from a blue school, right? After every year, there's assessments, there's a report card, I get my official report cards, and then when I finish elementary, I graduate, I'll get a diploma, same exact system for those that are accredited. If it's not accredited by DepEd, like I said, if it's not accredited, kanya-kanyang diskarte. I mean, some parents will create their own grading system. So it really depends. But for accredited programs, because they're accredited with DepEd, your question fits. Pareho lang yan.
All right. So,
may question sa chat, no? Regarding fees. So, is homeschooling expensive? Sabi ni Engineer Al. And are there any, like, how do I prepare my child financially for homeschooling, and then how will I budget it per year, per grade level? Because sabi mo kanina na may accreditation and may certain level of competency from grade 1 to so on and so forth. So is it expensive or is it cheaper than regular schooling that we are accustomed to? And how can I prepare?
Sure, it's much cheaper. So I'm gonna wear my personal financial planner hat also here, right? Tuition across providers, tuition fee, okay, across providers now is anywhere from 10,000 to 35,000 pesos per child per year. So that is extremely affordable compared to a private school that is 100, 150, 200, 1 million, 1 depending on the private school. So in that range of 10 to 35, what makes it different would be like in a school. How much infrastructure support do you want? Parang ganon. But it's definitely more affordable. So Edric, where does the money go? For homeschoolers, this is how we think, and this is how I work the financial planning through homeschooling, right? If I was to send my child to a school, it's like going to a restaurant and going a la carte. Yeah? I pay for the food, it's given to me. It's there. I can't pick and choose. Ay, ayoko tong kanin na to eh. It's all a la carte. Whereas homeschooling is buffet. So you can now pick and choose and say, I like this, I like that. So what homeschoolers will do, if in a school I pay 100 and I now go to homeschool, I pay, let's say the most expensive, let's say 35,000. I have 65,000 pesos left to spend. Where do they put their money? Smart people will put it into a college fund and prepare for the college. Some other people who have really thought through this will now use it to enrich the learning. So that's where homeschoolers put their money, enriching the learning. You do many things like traveling. Unfortunately, right now is not a big option because of the pandemic, but traveling, many families who homeschool will travel. They can travel and let the history learning and the subject matters come alive. They also enroll their kids in many different classes. Ang biruan sa homeschoolers, when people ask, paano yung socialization ng bata? The response of many homeschoolers is, actually, ang mga homeschoolers over-socialized.
Oh.
Because that's where they spend their money, really. You will have homeschoolers who will, for example, I'll give you an example. My kids have a sports program, they have a music program, they have an art program, right? And then my eldest son is even doing an internship right now, and he's part of the student council, the homeschool program. So when the lockdown happened, my kids, even if they're homeschooling, they're like, wow, this is great because we can be home, right? So, so that's where people will spend their money. Or, you know what, let's be realistic. Some families, it will just be a welcome relief kasi nawala ng trabaho. So like, great, you know what? I have no income. We're a dual income household. I can now save my money on the tuition fees or tuition fee of my kids. And ako na lang. So that's how we frame it from a financial planning standpoint. You have the opportunity to pick and choose where the money will go. And you can work it around your lifestyle, especially at a time like this. And then many parents will also spend on the books and materials. Nabanggit ko kanina, no? Many of these materials are not local, so they spend good amounts of money shipping it in, waiting it for it to arrive. Bring it in, or like programs like ours. If you look at learningplus.ph, because we have volume, we've worked with these US providers, cut it down, and we're the ones who ship it in and bring it so parents can avail of it in the Philippines. No? So yun, people will spend money on materials. If you see our homeschool room, for example, and many of them, ang daming mga materials. Kasi nga, there's flexibility in where you put your money.
I have a follow-up.
I have a question here now. Of course, you have your materials for the homeschool, pero how would the parent know that what they're teaching is correct?
Yeah, good question.
Paano ko yung magulang mismo mahina sa math, no? Paano siya? Yeah.
Very good. So, how will you know what you're teaching makes sense and they're actually learning something, right? There's two ways. Number one is, every decent parent that I know, they know if their kids get it. Let's talk about, so many times when we talk about homeschooling, people focus on the formal or academic part of it. But we forget to realize that as good parents, we're actually doing life schooling, right? O wag mong kainin yan dahil hindi healthy sa'yo yan. Wag mong panoorin yan. And when we are able to engage our children, even in those small areas, we know if they get it or not. So it's the same sort of instinct when you teach. For example, I'll make it practical. When my wife teaches my daughter math, right? And she says, okay, 5 plus 5 equals, and then my daughter looks at her blankly, she knows she doesn't get it. Or if they cover history and they will say, Jose Rizal is our national hero, and this is the reason why it's so important he's our hero. Can you tell me who is our national hero? Immediately, when they ask and the child says, they're not getting it. So they cannot work on that, right? So that's one way to assess instinctively, because there's so much interaction and the parent knows their children. They can spot whether binobola lang sila or alam ng bata talaga ang natutunan nila. Second, and more objectively, I'll say this again, right? Having accredited programs like ourselves, for example, there are tests that are not administered by the parent, that are done by us. And that becomes an objective way for the student and the parent to know if the child is learning something. So those are the two ways to see natututo ba talaga yung bata. How do I know? How will I know if I'm doing a good job? That's how.
Yeah. Very good that you touched upon life planning, because the audience is also concerned about values development. So Joseph Mateo and Leo Villarama is asking, how about values development? Because values are handed down from generation to generation. How do you integrate it to homeschooling? And of course, how do you identify the child's passion and integrate it when it comes to education of the child at home?
Right. So, you know what? This question is actually the one main reason around the world that parents have actually chosen to homeschool. It's the values development. As I was sharing to you earlier, America, when the public school systems were stripping away certain, maybe religious beliefs and values to make it more, equitable for the learners, that's when people are like, I don't want that. I want to be able to influence the values of my children. So homeschooling is exactly why people homeschooling is the environment by which parents choose to be able to influence the values even more, because you are now the primary person that they're interacting with. And assuming we are good parents, then we will be able to pass on the right values. So that's how it works. It's naturally built into the homeschooling system, because every good parent will only try to teach their children good things. And because you are the primary influence at home, then we are assuming, and this has happened through the generations, that the children will indeed learn the right values that mom and dad taught them.
Okay, related dyan yung tanong ni Joseph, no? I have a friend who happened to have 2 children on homeschool. She said they don't focus much on academics, but on child's passion and character development. So is this the same with all homeschool? And if it is so ibig sabihin, it's really the parents who are deciding on what their children should learn and give more focus on. Is that right?
Right. So if a parent is independently homeschooling, as I said, they can do whatever they want, right? So it's not going to be the same. Some might want to do more academics, some might not. Now, if they're under an accredited program, it's the same idea. They can still decide whatever they want, but because it's accredited, they now have to cover materials that are part of the accrediting program. For example, let's say in my school where I was enrolled as a child, right? My parents could choose whatever they want to expose me to. I could take martial arts, I could learn world religions, I could learn 5 languages. But when I go to school, I need to cover what is required by the school, right? Whether I like it or not. So it's the same homeschooling when you are under an accredited program. You can still choose whatever you want them to learn and do, but to get the accreditation, you need to be able to cover what that homeschooling provider requires you to do as part of their accreditation.
All right. Si Sab, may tanong siya. The duration of a school year, can it be shortened from the usual 10-month-ish per grade level?
Yes. So again, if you're independent, you can go, 10 grade levels in 1 year. No one's really checking. Who's really checking. So discard mo na yan. But if you're in an accredited program, you can adjust the amount of months. But generally speaking, you will need to comply to hit the cutoff every year that DepEd has in promoting the child to the next level. So the logical question people will ask is, well, paano kung gifted yung bata? At kaya naman niya mag-jump ng several grade levels. Like in a regular school, like maybe many of us, we had what's called acceleration. Do you remember that?
Yeah, accelerated program.
You can be accelerated, and it's the same thinking process. The child will be assessed, right? And if the child shows that they are several grade levels higher, we, by virtue of the accreditation of DepEd, can make the child jump those levels. So for example, grade 4 yung bata at napaka-advanced, and they can go to grade 6 based on the test, then we will allow the child to jump to grade 6. And that shortens, to your question, the amount of time necessary because they jump several levels higher. Do we encourage that? And this was part of the question I think that Renzi asked earlier. We do not encourage that. When I say we, so our program and our learning philosophy, right? We believe in holistic development. And this is my also personal conviction. Holistic means the academic potential and the brain development might be at that level, but all the other developmental factors, emotional, relational, aren't there yet. So we encourage parents to do this instead. keep them pacing at the right grade level that is age appropriate, right? So 5 years old, kindergarten, 6 years old, grade 1, 7 years old, grade 2. Just follow that. But the academic content, because it's homeschooling, you can bring it higher, right? So they're learning at their intellectual capacity, but they're developing at the right age appropriate levels. Yan yung payo namin. And we can't force that on parents because, as I said, by virtue of DepEd's regulation, if they qualify to jump several levels, we can't stop them. So we had a child, 9 years old, gusto mag high school, and he was a genius. He passed. He went straight to Philippine Science High School, 10 years old. Pwede. So that's their call. That's a parent's call. But again, we don't encourage it. And as a philosophy, again, we don't embrace it.
Question here, no? Like, if a parent finds it hard to teach, is there someone in Homeschool Global who can assist the parents?
Yep. So as I was saying, right, it's important to be in a community. So the people that could assist the parents would not only be fellow homeschooling parents in what's called a learn group, but they're also what are called learning advisors. So what we've done is we've worked with teachers in private schools who now shift and become part of homeschooling, and they become like coaches, learning advisors, so that a mom, for example, nahihirapan yung anak ko, tinuturuan ko ng double-digit addition, and I've tried to work with the materials already. Can you help me? And then the learning advisor will give them advice on how to work through that.
Right. Nag-share si Felix, no? I know parents who are both doctors but still able to homeschool their children. Wow.
Yes.
Very good.
Good job.
And by the way, guys, no, for our participants right now, you can drop at any time your super sticker.
Yeah. Ang ating ayuda. Pakita nyo kay Edric kung ano ibig sabihin nun.
Ayuda.
Yeah.
Ayuda.
One
Mamaya.
last.
Hopefully, meron.
And then
so
before
we super sticker to support us.
Tapos before we move to the next question, so I hope you guys are enjoying the video and learning a lot. And if you do, please give it a thumbs up because it would help with the visibility of the video. And a lot of Filipinos would also know about what homeschooling is. And of course, we can help educate our fellow Filipinos on the importance of homeschooling here in the Philippines. Sige.
Alright.
Let's move.
Kay Agent Disaster ulit tayo.
Yeah. Other than books from abroad, what other infrastructure should be prepared? Laptops, stable internet, or ano ba yung, how do you set it up at home?
Yeah, because of this new normal, we're forced to be at home, whether it's in a regular school, home-based learning, or in homeschooling. I think having stable internet is a must-have. So yeah, other than what you mentioned, Agent Disaster, I think that's the other area: laptop, stable internet, and that would be more to interact with the advisor, as I mentioned earlier, or with other homeschoolers. If you choose material that's primarily online, then yes, you'll need that. But if you have print-based materials, then internet would really just be for added resources and engaging the team that's working with you, because you can't meet with them face-to-face right now.
Yeah. To follow up lang to Agent Disaster's question, because we have a lot of material. So how do you balance screen time of the child, lalo na for grade 1, kinder, versus reading books, art materials, or yung traditional learning tools? Because there's already ongoing studies that having too much screen time can affect the development of the child psychologically. So how do you balance both of that?
Yeah, ako, inalwasan ka ng libro, Adriel. Sagot ka.
Just to keep my answer short and sweet, it's a good book. Basically, what I suggested earlier, breaking down the academic time. If your screen time is for academics because your materials are online, break it down the same way I talked about earlier. For young kids, 15 to 20-minute blocks break.
Okay.
For older ones, 40-minute blocks. For us adults, even us, if we want to have healthy screen time, even as we work and engage, 40-minute blocks, so that we can let our brain reset. So that's my straight answer. Now, if it's for entertainment, managing screen time for just entertainment, here's what I've been talking about in many different talks, webinars, counseling, coaching, is you want to make sure that in the digital space, our children and ourselves are using it more for creation rather than consumption. Does that make sense? As a general rule, if you spend more time binging on Netflix than using it to be able to collaborate with others, learn something more if you're a student, or learn something more for you as an adult that will help retool yourself at this time, so you'll have more opportunities for income in a time like this, then you're really messing up the priorities and you're not using digitally as well as you should be. That's my opinion, right? So think about, how can I be a creator more? How can I use it to create something rather than just consume? If it's primarily for consumption, even for the children, then to your question earlier, I would discourage the use of digital if it's primarily for consumption, because all of the effects that you're talking about, including from what neuroscientists say, it's not going to be helpful.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you
so
for
question. I mean, like for me, there also the reason why I invited Edric over is because my kids are in the traditional school right now, and then of course because of the pandemic, biglang online na lahat, tapos biglang nagbibigay na lang yung teachers ng assignments, tapos we really don't know how to do it. So sabi ko parang me and my wife, parang let's try nga homeschooling, parang let's take a look at it. Kaya actually may personal agenda rin ako dito. Kaya ako in-invite si Edric, but
Kaya na ako nandito para lang sa'yo, Renz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Go.
if I'm a parent right now, so how do I know na homeschooling is for me? I mean, for those parents out there who are also, taking a look at the homeschooling. So how do I know that if it's for me and my kid?
Right. So a straight answer would be, can you be resourceful? Can you be organized? Right? And I think the most important question, and I say this over and over again, whenever I talk about homeschooling, parenting, and money, you need to go back to your why, Renzi. As parents, we have an end goal for our kids. And maybe many of us aren't really clear on what that is. But whatever that end goal is, that is the ultimate why. And then we now match that with the education. Will homeschooling allow our children to achieve that end goal? And if the answer is yes, then go. That's how you will know it's for you. Because the reality is, any choice we make, whether it's homeschooling or regular school, there will be struggle. There will be, right? The question is, will be worth homeschooling, and alam mo, dali-dali niyan, it's a walk in the park, it's all these amazing things, although it can be, there's going to be struggle, there's going to be hardship, there's going to be moments where, why in the world are we doing this? But just like any decision we make, right? And as financial planners, we talk about this, even as people work towards their investment goals, right? Why will I go for it? Because you know what the end goal is. And if the end goal is clear, that's what's going to carry you through. So that's what I would suggest, Randy. The practical traits would be resourcefulness, being organized, right? And then, of course, time. We talked about that earlier with if you're both working. But apart from the practical things, you really want to ask yourself, what is the end goal of my child? And for many parents who are in lockdown mode, now is the time to really ask that and say, what is my goal for my children now that the world is resetting? And if that is clear to you, then you can say, tama ba tong homeschooling to help them achieve that goal? So I hope that speaks to you.
Thank you.
The other
for that.
I think shout out tayo.
Mag-shout out tayo kay Israel. Ayan, ito Edric yung ayuda namin dumating na. Salamat kay Israel na nagpadala ng 99 pesos at nagpapa-shoutout siya sa kanyang newborn baby na si Ismin. So hello Ismin. Yan. So maraming salamat sa 99 pesos na bagsak mo. Ayan. Yan ang ayuda namin dito, Edric.
Yun
sabi
yung
ni
future homeschooler.
Sabi ni Israel na my future homeschooler.
So global.
May tanong si Engineer Al, no? During this pandemic, paano magpa-accredit? Mayroon bang ongoing accreditation ng DepEd? I don't know exactly what he means, no?
Engineer Al, if you want to get accredited for the homeschooling work you're doing, as I was suggesting, you want to go to an accredited homeschool provider. That's the current setup of DepEd, no? That's the best way to do it. For the people who will independently homeschool, for their work to be accredited, ang mangyayari, they go to DepEd and they will take a battery of tests for every level that they have not been in a school. So, kung ano yung ipasa nila doon sa exam na yun, that is now the accredited grade level that DepEd will certify. And that's what you can now bring as you go back to a regular school. Halimbawa, kung nag-homeschool ka from grade 1 to grade 5, independently, walang accreditation, you will now take a test for all of those levels, And if the child passes up to grade 5, good for you. They get certified, they can now go to grade 6. Pero if they only pass until grade 1, worst case, and we've seen this, you have to start from grade 1 and then go into grade 2 in a regular school. So that's the risk involved, right? So that's why I keep suggesting for now, as much as possible, go with an accredited provider. They're not only going to help provide the infrastructure and the tools to get you started, but you're also assured that as far as DepEd is concerned, di mo na kailangan alahanin yan.
All right.
Yeah. Another question. So, of course, now that you've mentioned that you have to consider also an accredited provider. So, what are the other factors? Like, for me, I live in the South. I live in Parañaque. So, malapit ang Homeschool Global sa amin. So, di ba? You're just in Bigutan, right? So, malapit sa amin. So, what are the different factors to consider? Kasi you said before that we have different providers for homeschooling. So, what are the different factors that we would have to consider in choosing which one is the best fit for us in our family for a homeschool provider?
Right. So that's a little trickier because it's like choosing a school, right? When parents first choose a school, the same thinking process will probably apply, diba? What school is accessible to me? What school philosophy is aligned with my own values? And what school has maybe the reputation that I want to have for my children as they meet other people there? What school can I honestly afford, right? So all of those same factors, friends, would probably be the same factors that parents will use to choose the best provider for them.
All right. May nagtanong dito si Marion E. Will a child doing homeschool for some time have a challenge in socializing with other kids? And if I may share, I don't think there will be a problem because I have a friend na naka-homeschool yung anak niya, and my friend runs a business, and dala niya lagi yung anak niya dun sa business kasi syempre siya naman yung owner, di ba? So meron siyang materials, so yung anak niya nag-aaral with the textbooks and all, so they don't really need internet to study. And yun, after mag-aral, yung anak niya, nag-aano siya, he mingles around with the staff ng business kasi it's just a small business. And yun nga, yung anak niya, he's enrolled in a music class, and so dun niya nakukuha yung socializing. So what do you think about that, Edric?
Yun na yun. Yun yung sagot. You said it well. I would just encourage Marian Eno. As I said earlier, most homeschoolers are over-socialized. But let's be realistic. If a parent cannot find ways for the child to interact with other children, for whatever reasons, sobrang busy or gipit ang budget, and the child will be forced to primarily just be at home, and that's going to be their lifestyle, even the parent cannot pour in time to the child, I would strongly advise not to homeschool because of your point. You will have a problem with development.
Or maybe Marion can enroll his child sa mga extracurricular activities, no?
Yes.
Because I think around NCR marami namang painting classes or mga dance classes or socializing classes that can augment yung homeschool that is lacking. No, kung yun yung concern. Because I have a friend, our batchmate actually in college, na homeschool siya from grade 1 to 6, but he attended a lot of art classes, piano classes. Nag-interact din siya sa mga kids doon. So that would, I guess, help solve yung socializing problem.
Yeah, and that's why, right? As I was saying, if they cannot have access to that, that's when I said it's not advisable. Because there's a lot of opportunities to be over-socialized like that. Pero kung hindi, kasi may mga kasong ganun eh. There are parents who live in one of the 7,100 islands of the Philippines, and as they choose to homeschool, they don't have access to extracurriculars, the parents super busy, and we've been honest in saying, alam mo, homeschooling is not for you because you're not going to be able to get them to socialize and interact.
Yeah. Interesting tong question ni John Joshua. No? Do you have any figure or chart?
Pwede sumingit. Meron ba kayong do you also have mga excursion?
Field trip.
Mga field trips, Renz, marami dyan. Field trips, local, international, right? Gusto mo pa na around the world. Marami mga, it's so fast now. So to the question about
Yeah, ito.
Soriano, I saw that even earlier. Yes, the figures and charts show as far as academics and even socialization, the best place to look, unfortunately, is not in the Philippines because there's not many here. Although you can look, there are different doctorate dissertations that have been done at the UP College of Education. I think there's one at St. Scholastica and Miriam. You can look this up if you want scholarly, research-based materials on academics and socialization, which are the big two. Pagdating sa homeschooler, yan lang naman dalawa eh. You can look those up for data locally. Not too many yet, but if you want a good site that is rich in those resources, look to the US portal, which is the National Home Education Research Institute, NHERI, NERI.org. That's a good resource if you want hard, empirical, research-based data. That's what you can use.
Tama ba? NHERI.org.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah.
All right. Ito, si Team M&M. Tama ba yung, yeah.
Ayan. Or kay Joseph Mateo ba una?
Ito na lang muna. Isunod natin kay Joseph.
Sige,
yes.
go.
So, my question is, how do you manage multiple kids having different ages? Ayan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for homeschooling, the easy answer to that would be you work with the materials. So what homeschooling materials have done, this is why I said it's different from textbooks. If you bought textbooks for each of your kids, then you would have to do what a school would do, right? Isang bata muna, and then another child, then another child. But the homeschooling materials are designed now so that it can be used with multi-age children. For example, one history textbook will be read for all the ages of the kids by the teaching mom. After the teaching mom does it for all the age kids, she will say, okay, for the oldest one, I want you to write a 2-page essay. Okay, essay. For the next age, I want you to be able to work with your other siblings and you'll create a skit that will show us how this history story evolved. And then para sa mamaliit na bata, she could say something like, I have a picture of these heroes and a scene in the history. Can you color it? Yeah, and then they now go into doing their individual age-appropriate work. That's how they would manage multiple age kids, right? Now, a disclaimer. As I said earlier, I told you how much time you need to spend for children depending on their level, right? For multiple age kids, if you have young children, the reality is mas kailangan mo ng one-on-one sa kanila versus the older ones, right? So what would happen if you start your homeschooling day, for example, in the morning, you will now spend a dedicated time for the young ones first, may tutok yan, and then you would now supervise the older ones after. So that's how you would juggle several children. If you have young ones, there has to be a lot of the one-on-one with them first, right? But there are ways to also do it so that you can have the group sessions and you manage the scheduling based on what makes sense for you.
All right. Sige. So,
Okay.
thank you for that.
Yes, thank you, Sir Edric.
You can have them. You can actually have them doing several different things at the same time. It's like, think about a gym, right? These circuits. If you're in a gym, si Renzi, alam ko, very fitness, fitness. In a circuit, right? If I'm the trainer, I'll have 5 students. One of them is doing their lifting of weights, the others at the treadmill, the other one maybe doing the ropes, right? It's similar to that. As a mom who's teaching several age kids, after tutukan ko yung isa, pwedeng ganun ang labas. One is doing the math, the other is doing science, and then they just ask, Mom, I have a question. Then you can go to see them. So that's what it will look like on a day-to-day.
Yeah.
Gusto ko yung analogy na yan.
Gym, no?
This is in relation to question of agent disaster later on. Pero what should a parent have to, to homeschool a kid? I mean, of course,
itanong na rin natin yung and also
ako personally wala akong patience magturo.
So any tips on how to prepare mentally daw for the parents? Kasi pagkatapos ko magturo sa kids ko, bigla akong tumatanda ng 5 years. Yeah.
So here's my free tip, right? when it comes to homeschooling, the reality is it's more parenting than homeschooling. So that is my first tip. Be prepared to force yourself to become a better parent. Because a lot of the things you talked about, patience, that's not an education concern, that's a parenting concern. The listening, attentiveness ng bata, engaging too much gadgets, all the wrong behaviors, the values, that's all parenting related. So I would suggest, if you want to prepare yourself mentally, my first tip, once again, Agent Disaster, is focus more on the parenting than the academics, because that's going to be the bigger struggle. Number 2, take it a checkpoint at a time. Si Renzi, alam ko, nagdi-distance run yan eh. Hindi pa nakasama sa akin, pero gusto kong sumama sa mga runs mo. Di ba, Renzi, I asked you a couple of times about yung, what's that one? Spartacus?
Spartan race.
Yung Spartan race.
My suggestion for Agent Disaster and for parents there is it's like running a long distance race. Don't burn out as you go into it. You need to create checkpoints. For example, sabihin mo, okay, here is the this is my textbook for my child. Ang gagawin ko, 4 quarters, I'll break it down into 4 quarters. Okay? So 400 pages, 100 page per quarter. When you have that checkpoint, you break it down smaller and say, okay, 100 pages, that's for 2.5 months, because 1 quarter is about 2.5 months. So let me break it down further into monthly goals. Once you have the monthly goal, break it down further into something bite-sized, like a weekly or daily goal. Once you have that set up, Agent Disaster, that is my second tip. You now just attack one small goal at a time so that you're not overwhelmed. So, ngayong araw na to, ano bang kailangan natin i-cover? Let's get this done. That's how you can prepare yourself mentally. Remember to focus on the parenting, first tip. And second, you now take the bigger goal and break it into bite-sized goals so that you're not overwhelmed with, 1 year pa, masisiraan na ako ng ulo, right? Just take it a day at a time. Let's finish the math work today and then move to tomorrow. That's what you, that's my other tip, right? So number 1, again, parenting. Number 2, break your goals down into bite-sized pieces and then just work on those bite-sized goals so that you will see yourself progressing and say, wow, malapit na ko yung matapos ng 1 year. Good job. Wow, 1 year pa. Ang dami pang kailangan gawin. Just take 1 day at a time and then, check that off your list and you'll see yourself progressing fairly easier, right? So yun ang suggestion to prepare.
In relation to that, like for example, I'm a parent, and then during traditional schooling, I'm not really that kunwari, I'm not really an honor student. I'm just an average parent. So, sometimes I have my challenges also. So if I'm that kind of parent, can I still, teach? Do I even have the right to teach? Some parents will be or during high school, I'm just one of those, So, I mean, can anybody, teach in that regard in terms of intellectual capacity? I mean, not for anything else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very good question. So, Renz, the beauty of homeschooling is the burden is no longer on you as a parent versus on the methodology and the materials. What do I mean? From an education standpoint, the best way a child will learn is what's called personalized learning, right? So each student is different. I'm sure in your workshops on money and personal finance, when you talk and you coach, even Fitz, diba, he consults, if you have 10 people in a room, iba-ibang tao yan eh. So it's very hard to be able to address each unique individual with their unique needs in one setting. Does that make sense? So that's the challenge. I gave back to my Blue School, and I taught at the college level. I had 35 students, right? I did that part-time just to help out. I taught marketing 101. And as I taught the students, like any parent or any teacher rather in a school, ang challenge mo dyan is 35 students are all different. And you have a set time to teach them, right? So I wanted to teach them marketing. Some like basketball, some like shopping, some like cars. When I use cars to talk about marketing, wow, nabuhayan sila. When I use basketball, those that like basketball, nabuhayan. But those who don't like basketball, right? So if I could spend one-on-one time with each of them and work with all their questions and answer it, they will learn a lot better. So that's what personalization means. So in a homeschooling environment, there's natural personalization because you know your child. Alam mo yung kiliti niya, alam mo yung interest niya, alam yung hilig niya. So you can use that so that they're engaged. My kid liked dinosaurs. So my wife used dinosaurs to talk about science, math, language, history, pati Bible nasama niya because that's what they like. So that's my answer. The challenge of teaching in a homeschooling environment becomes a little bit less because there is the personalization, right? That naturally happens. And second, even as it is personalized, what happens is the materials can do the heavy lifting for the child. What do I mean? I did say we're in the information age today, right? And because we're in the information age, what does that mean that we did not have when we were in school? Baka si Adel di pa umabot, pero si Fitz, si Reggie at ako umami na tayo. Nung panahon natin, wala pang internet. When we were learning, we were dependent on the teacher and the material. Wala eh. Saan kami kukuha ng resource? But today, because of the internet, children can go deep and wide in the learning. And that's what we do. For example, I'll make it very practical. No? We talk about this. My wife, she's not an expert in math. But my eldest son, when we had him tested, he scored at the genius IQ level, highly gifted. So at 9 years old, he was already taking end high school math. Yun ang kaya niya. Hindi kaya ng wife ko. And I didn't have time to teach him. So what did we do? We found a resource called Khan Academy. And it's a free site. It's developed by a guy named Sal Khan. He's times 100 most influential people. My wife connected him to that. And he started learning math from Sal Khan's portal. And he was able to go much farther than I or my wife could teach him. He was able to go up to his level, right? Beyond his grade. And he was able to expand that. So because of that, we like to tell parents, when you ask me kanina, ano ba yung mga traits ng homeschooler? I said resourceful. What we need to just be able to do with parents is say, hey, can you be resourceful? Can you look up stuff like that so that the material is working with the student and we do not get in the way as parents? They're able to go deep and wide. And as a testament to how well that works, right? Just to appease Renzi and the parents that are wondering, wala naman akong degree, hindi naman ako genius sa math or science. Paano sila matututo? I gave you an example of my wife. Let me share with you Dr. Michael Tan. He's one of my favorite examples. He's the recently chancellor of UP Diliman, right? So chancellor of the UP Diliman education system. He became a homeschool dad in our program. And he, after he saw the academics and how it worked, was so fascinated. He said, if I could homeschool all my kids all over again, I would. But he can't. So he had one left. And he said, I will infuse it across the whole UP system instead. Because from a methodology standpoint, it is definitely an advantage. So, kung ako parent, sablay, it will not matter as much, except, and here's the except, if you cannot read and write, medyo barrier yan. But the kind of college degree you have, the specialization you have, will not be as much of a factor because as a parent, if you can just personalize it, based on how your child learns, and you now work with materials so that they do the heavy lifting, academics will speak for itself, as I said, like in the case of Dr. Michael Tan. And if you want other data just to support that same website I talked about, they studied parents who have high school degree only, parents who had college degree, parents who had masteral degrees, and they compared the academic performance of all the children, all factors being equal. You know what the finding was? Same output. So the academic degree did not really play a role.
All right. So it's great that you mentioned si Professor and actually si Professor Michael Tan. Kasi he was my professor back in college. I took Anthro 187 sa kanya. Alam ni Renzi yung Anthro 187, that's Sex and Culture, and si Professor Michael Tan ang aking teacher doon. So sabi ni Jeffrey, Mr. Edric is so eloquent and you're so impressive daw.
Yes.
Thanks,
Tapos
guys.
si Sab Placiente.
Yes.
Sabi niya, I like their English accent with Melissa. How do I pronounce this? Gecolea and Salve Duplito.
Oo.
Yun.
Yeah. So, sabi ni, asawa mo ba to, Renzi?
what's up? Hi, Carl.
Si ano,
Ah,
hello Carl. Yeah, so thanks, good insights on homeschooling. Nanonood siya ng ano.
Mm.
Yan.
Oo.
May tanong si
Tap-
Trader Marco, kailan ka daw babalik sa On the Money, Edric?
Stand by.
And I guess this is also a good point, no? You can also inject financial literacy sa pag nag-homeschool ka. You can teach your kids as early as possible about personal finance, which is, I think, di ba, that's always the script of all these people teaching personal finance. So that's why a lot of Filipinos don't know how to take care of their money kasi hindi daw tinuturo sa school. But now, parents don't have an excuse kasi they can teach personal finance to their kids through homeschooling and or of course on their own, but especially if they are homeschooling.
yes.
Well said.
Yeah. So by the way,
Exact-
Rick, no, so we're on the tail end of our discussion already. So thank you for being with us and providing so
Welcome.
many information and enlightening us. So yeah, any last words about homeschooling for those who are considering or
Yeah.
most especially right now?
Thanks, Renz. Thanks, guys. You're friends, and we've shared the same advocacies. I think we even tried to work on this special needs, right, and talk about that. My encouragement to you guys and to everybody that's watching here, simple lang. Yung sinabi ko kay Renzi kanina, when you look at homeschooling as an option for your children, it's a good thing to consider, but the more important question is why. Because as parents, whether we choose to homeschool or not, that is the most important question we need to ask ourselves. Why are we doing what we're doing? What is the end goal for our children? And if we haven't settled that yet, now is the time to do that. Because once again, once that is clear, then you can factor in all the other decisions, including this idea of homeschooling, is it for me or not for me? I would encourage you, if you're going to remember anything from me and my discussion with these amazing gentlemen, tandaan niyo po yun. What is your why? What is the end goal that you have for your kids? You need to identify that first, and then everything else will follow. All right. So, thank you guys. Thanks for
Thank
having me.
you. And,
Thank you.
and
Thank
of course,
you.
sa mga
Hello.
curious about homeschooling, they can visit your website. So ph.homeschoolglobal.com to learn more about that. So thank you very much,
Thanks, Edric.
Edric.
Yeah, thank you,
And sana
sir.
maulit. Ayan.
Yes.
So again, I hope sa 60,000 na nanonood sa atin today, you learned a lot about homeschooling, and maraming salamat sa mga nanood at nagtanong, at syempre kay Israel na nagbigay ng 99 pesos. Palakpakan din natin.
May subscription na ulit tayo next month.
Marirenew natin yung subscription ng StreamYard.
StreamYard.
And of course, next week we will do our live stream again. And I hope that everyone is safe and healthy during this time. And may any last words, Renzi, Adriel, before we say goodbye?
Yeah,
For
stay
those
safe and stay healthy.
Ano ulit? Sige,
Sorry.
Renzi.
Stay safe and stay healthy.
All right. Adriel, last word.
Tapos, for those na curious sa Khan Academy, no, I'll provide the link in the description later below. No, it's our lifesaver. Nagamit ko din yan nung college. And of course, 57,000 viewers natin. If you really like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps, no, with our visibility in our YouTube channel. And of course, stay safe, stay healthy. Di pa tapos yung pandemic. So, keep safe, guys.
All right. So, guys, see you again next week. Meron pa rin kaming guest next week. At sabi ko kay Renzi, mukhang magkakantahan tayo next week. So, abangan nyo kung sino yung guest namin next week sa live stream natin. And of course, every Monday we come out with our video. So, you should also check out our channel para makita nyo yung aming mga ibang video. So, I guess that's it. Thank you again, Edric. And
thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.